Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Buddhist Society of Victoria, and welcome to everyone online. We would like to welcome Ajahn Nissarano back to give us a Dharma talk today. Ajahn Nissarano is the Senior Bhikkhu for the BSV and resides at Newbury Monastery. I will pass to Savitri to request the refuges.
That's right. And you're welcome to join in with the request, and we do it in English, so that's quite easy. There we are.
Venerable, we request 3 refugees and the 5 training rules. For the second time, Venerable, we request 3 refugees and the 5 training rules. For the third time, Venerable, we request 3 refugees and the 5 training rules.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And indeed, we're all refugees in the samsara. That's the truth of it. That's it. So now we can do, in English, we can do the homage to the Buddha and then the refuges line by line. So I'll do the homage to the Buddha 3 times, and then we'll do the refuges line by line. All right. Homage to the Blessed Noble and Perfectly Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed Noble and Perfectly Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed Noble and Perfectly Enlightened One. Noble and perfectly one. Homage to enlightened. To the Buddha I go for refuge. To the Dhamma I go for refuge. To the Sangha I go for refuge. For the second time, to the Buddha I go for refuge. For the second time, to the Dhamma I go for refuge. For the second time, to the Sangha I go for refuge. For the third time, to the Buddha I go for refuge. For the third time, to the Dhamma I go for refuge. For the third time, to the Sangha I go for refuge. And now this completes the going for refuge. And now we can do the precepts line by line. I undertake the training rule to refrain from killing living beings. I undertake the training rule to refrain from stealing. I undertake the training rule to refrain from sexual misconduct. I undertake the training rule to refrain from lying. I undertake the training rule to refrain from alcohol and drugs which lead to carelessness. Through virtue, these 5 training rules lead to happiness, lead to good fortune, lead to liberation. Therefore, let them be purified. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very important part of the path, not to be neglected. And now together we can chant the recollection of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. The Blessed One is the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one. He is impeccable in conduct and understanding, the accomplished one, the knower of the worlds. He trains perfectly those who wish to be trained. He is teacher of devas and humans. He is awake and holy. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading inwards, to be personally experienced by the wise. They are the Blessed One's disciples who are practicing well, who are practicing directly, who are practicing insightfully, those who are practicing with integrity. That is the 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of noble beings. These are the Blessed One's disciples. Such ones are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respect. They are the unsurpassed field of merit for the world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And now for the Buddha's words on loving kindness. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, not busy with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to wrong views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So lovely to have the Metta Sutta. It's very stirring, and it's reminds us of our practice, and that we need to practice metta whenever we're standing, walking, seated or lying down. And of course, how often is that? All the time. There's no break. So that's quite a challenge. Because to do that, we need mindfulness, to have that mindfulness that remembers, this metta, this loving kindness. And that way we can keep it going, whether we're standing, walking, seated or lying down. But we have to have that mindfulness. So this morning I thought a very topical talk, and one that inspires me a lot actually. And I've called it, Can Lay People Become Enlightened? Can lay people become enlightened? And it's the story of Nakula Pitta and Nakula Mata. And I'll translate that as Nakula's father and Nakula's mother. We don't know who Nakula was, actually. Interesting, it was probably a monk. And maybe he is a well-known monk, but they didn't use Nakula in his name. And they're the ideal Buddhist couple. And of course, can lay people become enlightened? Of course. And so many did in the time of the Buddha, and probably even today there are lay people that are becoming enlightened. And of course, people will ask how that is possible, how to practice in order to become enlightened in the lay life. And of course, the answer is not an easy one, but to live like a monastic at home, to free oneself from sensual desire. That's our big job. And that's what Nakula Pitta asked, actually, the Buddha. Maybe he was thinking of himself, and Nakula Mata, and so Nakula's father and Nakula's mother. And he asked the Buddha, why is it some people become enlightened and some don't? And the Buddha said, it's because if we can give up our attachment to, our clinging to sensual pleasures from the senses, then it's possible to become enlightened. So some can and some can't. And so it really takes a lot of wisdom and a lot of understanding, really, in order to do that. But I thought maybe it's much easier if we see the example of somebody who did become enlightened as a lay person. And of course, and you don't see so many accounts like this, but in the numerical discourses there is one of Nakula Mata, Nakula's mother, and she does this lioness's roar of how, she doesn't say that I've become enlightened, but everything she says tells you that she's at least a stream enterer. I don't know how Nakula didn't miss that, Nakula's father. So there we are. And of course it's quite important, because if a person becomes enlightened, if they become a stream enterer or a non-returner second stage, or a once returner second stage, or a non-returner third stage, or fully enlightened, they have joined a different sangha. What sangha have they joined? They've joined the Arya Sangha. And Arya Sangha is really both monastic and lay people that have attained a stage of enlightenment. So these are the refuge. When we just chanted in English, the refuge, and we talk about the 4 pairs and the 8 kinds of persons. And this is the Arya Sangha. And of course, the 4 pairs, anybody know what the 4 pairs are? Sometimes it's interesting because we chant these things and people say, don't really know what it is, 4 pairs, the 8 kinds of persons. Anybody know who the 4 pairs are? I think you do, but yeah. Oh, Cipianto does, that's good. Of course, the 4 pairs are the person on the path to becoming a stream enterer. And the next one is the person on the path to become a once returner, and the one that's become a once returner. Sorry, I might have missed out the stream enterer as well, on the path to become a stream enterer and the stream enterer. Then the once returner, the one that's on the path to the once returner and is a once returner, achieves that. or experiences, that's a better word. And then the third one, of course, third pair, is the person that's on the path to non-returning anagami, and the person that has become an anagami. So that's third stage of enlightenment. And the fourth stage, of course, is the person on the path to full awakening and the person that is fully awakened. So that's the four pairs. And of course, if you get the four pairs, you know who the 8 kinds of persons are. And that's a very, it's because that's the person on the path to stream entry and the stream entrant, the person on the path. And the good news, it really inspired me when I first heard Ajahn Brahm teaching the word of the Buddha during a rains retreat when I was a lay person at his monastery in Western Australia. And he said, you know, if you're on the path to stream entry, it means that you're practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. So each and every one of us that is practicing the Noble Eightfold Path with that intention to really give it a go is on the path to be stream enterer, become a stream enterer. Sotapanna, or Sotapatti is another way of calling it, Sowan in Sinhala. And so that's quite an uplifting, for me it's very uplifting. And of course, you know, people will say, you know, how can you tell that you're on that path? And of course, in the early stages, it won't be so apparent. But as time goes by, we'll start to understand more deeply the teachings of the Buddha, particularly about impermanence, anicca. We'll understand more about this dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness, suffering. We'll understand more about the anatta, which is this non-self, that this body and mind is a process. It will become clearer and clearer to us. And so these are signposts, and then one may become, the other signposts of becoming what the Buddha calls a faith follower or a stream follower. These are 2 streams before a person becomes a stream enterer. And a faith follower has such faith, confidence in the Buddha. It doesn't mean they don't understand Dhamma, but they're driven by this really strong conviction, faith, confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And that will lead to their breakthrough to the first stage of enlightenment, stream entry. And then the Dhamma follower. And the Dhamma follower is somebody that really, that is the main focus for them, is the Dhamma. And so they make that breakthrough through wisdom, really. They still have faith. They all have to have, otherwise they won't find the energy, they won't find the importance, the relevance of the Dhamma, because it has to be built on that confidence, that faith. The Buddha is enlightened. What he's talking about is reality, is true, and that there are others, the Sangha, who've practiced this, and it's led to enlightenment, to awakening. So this is, you know, these 4 pairs and 8 kinds of persons, and it's very, and it shows this process. And it's interesting that the Buddha, before he passed away into parinibbana, Mara said to him, I wanted to find the exact wording, but I didn't find it, but that that now that the Buddha's community, the Buddhist community was well established, the 4 assemblies, the Buddha called them, the Chatu Parissa, was well established. There were fully ordained monks, fully ordained nuns, laymen and lay women who were versed well in the Dhamma, understood the Dhamma, who could refute different positions people might take about the Dhamma, and also had seen the Dhamma, you know, had understood it really, had a firm foothold in the Dhamma. And he said he wouldn't pass into parinibbana until that had happened. And Mara said, well, this is the case now, isn't it? And then the Buddha agreed that in 3 months he would pass away into parinibbana, but only when he was sure that the whole Buddhist community was able to continue without him. And let's look at it, 2,000, almost 600 years later, it's still going. So he was quite right that it was well established, it was set up, it can keep going without the Buddha being present. Though of course he's always present. How is he present to us even today? through the teaching, through the Dhamma. As the Buddha said, one who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha, and one who sees the Buddha sees the Dhamma. So this was a very important recollection that the Buddha had before his parinibbana, that the job had been completed. So that's great. And the importance of recollecting some of these people that have become enlightened, whether they be lay people or whether they be monastics, is that we can use this for Sangha Nusati. And that means reflecting on this person, bringing up this inspiration. What you can see, it brightens the mind, where they sometimes say gladdens the mind, pamuja, and then it brings up this joy, this rapture. This is particularly in the meditation. And then that rapture is a really high energy state, a very joyful state. And this leads to tranquility of body and mind. And this is in meditation, when the different parts of the body or the whole body seems to disappear. It means we're cutting off from the five senses. And where are we headed? Inside, into the mind. The mind is becoming one-pointed. Then there's this happiness comes up, because whenever we, as it were, are detached from the body, then this happiness can come up. You know, for people who have had a near-death experience, people that have had out-of-body experience, it's quite common for them to feel quite happy to be out of this heavy body, this sick body, if it's a near-death experience. Coming back, not so great. They feel like it's so heavy, and for a sick body, it's quite a bit of suffering there and then. So this is then having had that passaddhi, that tranquility of body and mind, the happiness. Then with that happiness, the mind can converge. It can become one-pointed. One-pointed means that there's only an experience of oneness of the joy and happiness that they've experienced in the meditation. And from that experience, Sangha Nusati, and this is what Visakha, another enlightened lay person, she was a stream enterer at least, mentioned that having experienced these deep meditations, internal tranquility, then a person can practice the four focuses of mindfulness, fulfill them, then fulfill the 7 factors of awakening. Not bad, not bad. So this is something, when we find these figures in Dhamma, whether they be at the Buddha's time or even now, we can get a lot of happiness from this reflection. I'm just reading I've just started actually reading the biography of Empty Cloud, a famous Mahayana Chinese monk who passed away in 1959, but very inspiring life. And so I'm just having a read of that. And this is Sangha Nusati, when we really rejoice in that Arya Sangha, because this monk, I think many people think was quite an attained monk. So as mentioned, I was going to focus on a teaching that shows quite convincingly that Nakula Mata, or Nakula's mother, was indeed an Arya Pugala, an enlightened person. So, and it's a very touching story too. It's very human. So the setting for it is, of course, that Nakula Mata, Nakula's father, was I should say they were living in a place called Sung Samara Gira, and the Buddha was spending a rains retreat there in the Besikala Grove, the deer park, at this city of Sung Samara Gira. And that the people are called the buggers. Buggers. Doesn't sound so good in English. But anyway. The buggers. There's probably a proper way of saying it, an Indian way of saying it. And then Nakula's father was very sick and looked like he was about to die. And he was really overcome by worry and concern about his family, particularly how would Nakula's mother, Nakula Mata, how would she manage without him? And this is the reply, this is the sort of advice really, we call it an ovada, that she gave to Nakalapita to calm his anxiety. And she said to him, do not die full of concern, because to die full of concern is painful. And she said, to die full of concern has been, it says here, criticised by the Blessed One, but not praised, not a good way to pass away from this life. And she says to him that you may think that I won't be able to support the family anymore now that you're gone. She said, but I've got handicraft. And she mentions that she can do weaving and knitting, and she will support the family. And so he shouldn't die full of concern on that account, that she won't manage. And then she's very practical too. She says, you may think that I'll take another husband. Here he is on his deathbed, and she's really honest, isn't she? I mean, many men may think that as they're passing away. I don't know if he said it to her, but anyway, she said, you may think that, but that's not the case. She said, we have been celibate for 16 years already. And now you're seeing some of the ingredients for how Nakala's mother, became enlightened, and possibly how Nakalapita became enlightened. I don't know if he was, but certainly from this, it does sound like. So she says, don't die full of concern on this account. And she said, because Nakalapita, Nakala's father, said, well, you probably won't be able to visit the Buddha so much. And she says to him, don't be concerned on that account, because I will visit the Buddha more often than I do now. And so then this is this sort of ordinary sorts of things, but very human for me, and very, you can imagine if one of your partner was passing away, they may have similar concerns actually for you, how you manage, And then she really gives what we call a lion's roar. It's called Sihanada, lion's roar. The Buddha gives many, and many of the famous disciples give this lion's roar, which is all about the power of the Dhamma, really. And in this case, it is a lioness's roar. She really lays it on the line. She says, and of course, not to be concerned, because he thought that she may not be fulfilled in her sila, her morality, her virtue. And she said, this is not the case. I have fulfilled sila, morality, virtue. And you may think, well, that's not such a big thing, but it is. When we say that, really the first person that fulfills sila is the stream enterer. They have perfected their sila. They can not break any of the precepts without confessing it to someone else. Their morality is so good. They say that their virtue is the virtue of the noble ones. It's a very high level of virtue. It's the 5 precepts to the max, and also the 5 precepts from the positive side too. It's not only restraining, because for a noble person, the qualities are already there of a lot of metta, a lot of compassion, and a lot of mudita, this rejoicing in good qualities, and a lot of acceptance, this upekkha, this balance of mind. So she'd fulfilled the virtue, and she says, on this account, please do not die full of concern. And he was also concerned that she may have not developed her mind. I think, what were they doing, living together all this time? And this was news to him? I don't know. She says, you may be concerned that I don't attain internal serenity. And of course, internal serenity is pretty much code for the jhanas, for deep, deep meditation, really, really still meditation, powerful meditation, very purified states of mind. And she says, I am a laywoman that attains to, experiences these internal serenity of mind. So this is pretty amazing. And he was also concerned that and this is a lovely wording actually, that she had not found a foothold, a firm stand, assurance in the Dhamma and Vinaya, not crossed over doubt, got rid of bewilderment and attained self-confidence and independent of others in the teaching. And she says to him, you should not think that, because I have. I am one that has a firm hold, a firm stand, assurance in the Dhamma and Vinaya, no doubt, and got rid of bewilderment, attained self-confidence, and am independent in the Buddha's teachings. And for anyone that knows a bit about the first stage of enlightenment, what's that? What's this statement mean? It's somebody who's seen the Dhamma. They've got no doubt. And of course, you know, if you've experienced something, you don't have doubt. You know from your own experience. And when you know from your own experience, wow, this is the path to enlightenment. I've really seen it for myself. Then you know for sure, yeah, the Buddha's enlightened. And it's possible for others to realize this, the Sangha. And in fact, when one has reached that first stage of enlightenment, one has joined the Arya Sangha. They really have. And so they're not, and also the other one is that, of course, they know that all these rites and rituals, these observances, that's not what gets you enlightened. That's not what brings about enlightenment. What brings about enlightenment? What do you think? Practice of what? Is it just meditation? Is it just giving, dana? It's the Eightfold Path. This is a path of practice. This is what the Buddha's biggest gift to us is really that we can practice the Noble Eightfold Path and realise the results of that for ourselves. It's not a path that actually gives you all the answers in it. It's the path of practice. The answers, 9th factor, and that's Sammajnana, right knowledge, and Sammavimutti, that's the 10th factor, right liberation. That comes after. But we practice, and then the Buddha says there are 4 results. Stream entry, the first stage of enlightenment, once return, second stage of enlightenment, third stage of enlightenment, not returning. This is not returning to this world. And the 4th stage of enlightenment, fully awakened. So these are the results of practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. That's why I say, and why Ajahn Brahm was saying in that first Rains retreat, when I listened to his commentary to Word of the Buddha, that famous text by Venerable Tiloka, that those on the path who are practicing the Noble Eightfold Path are on the path to awakening to the first stage of enlightenment. So that's the good news for us. And so after she had spoken to Nakalapita like this, what happened? He recovered, or his symptoms reduced. They reduced, immediately reduced. It wasn't about to die anyway, that was quite good. And then when he had recovered, he went to see the Buddha using a walking stick. He went to see the Buddha. And because I don't think he would have been that old. If they had children, the oldest would have been 16 years old. And the youngest would have been 16 years old, that's right. But the oldest would have been more than 16. And he sees the Buddha. And in the text, when you read the sutta, this is Anguttara, the numerical discourses, in the chapter of the sixes, sutta number 16, it doesn't sound like he's told the Buddha what happened, but he must have really, because then the Buddha says to him, it's great good fortune, it's great gain to you to be advised by the housewife, the translation here is Nakala's mother. And he confirms that she was one who's fulfilled virtue. She has attained internal serenity of mind, and she has attained a foothold in the Dhamma, and she is one that is independent in the Buddha's teaching. So she's a stream enterer, for sure. And then Nakalapita, he rejoices in the Buddha's words. And the strange thing to me is that he didn't seem to realise that his wife had already fulfilled so much of that, because then he need not die with concern, and that concern, of course, painful and not praised by the Buddha. So this is the story of Nakula Mata, or Nakula's mother's, her lioness's roar. And I think it can be a great basis, as mentioned, for bringing up inspiration. Inspiration is really what ignites this sort of sense of confidence or faith. It uplifts the mind, and it brings with it this gladness, this brightness of mind, as mentioned. And when we go into meditation, we can just bring to mind, for instance, before we start, Nakula Mata, or Nakula's mother, and just allow that inspiration to come out and that feeling of uplift, and then use it in the meditation to build, maybe with Anapanasati, we're breathing in and out, and for that, just that how we make it grow is just by focusing on it. So if you feel that inspiration, you just give attention to it. You don't force anything, and it grows by itself. Like a pond, if you throw a stone in a pond, it'll start to ripple out. And in the same way, this inspiration will ripple out and become this gladness, will become this joy, or this rapture, you call it piti, will become this tranquility of body and mind, passaddhi, will become this happiness, sukha, and then will become this one-pointedness, this samadhi, or stillness, as Ajahn Brahm calls it. It will naturally go towards that direction. But we all, without exception, need something to start the fire of the meditation, to really use, Ajahn Brahm talks about loving kindness, kindling, as it were, something that will bring up those positive emotions, bring up that uplift and joy. So this is what we can use. This is how we can develop Sanghanussati. And if you see those factors that I mentioned to you, they are probably familiar to you. Where else do you see those? Pretty much the same. It's in the 7 factors of awakening. They're pretty similar, actually. They usually start with mindfulness, of course, and also the next one, Dhamma Vichaya, which is investigation of qualities of the mind, wholesome qualities of the mind, giving rise to energy, giving rise to this piety, this rapture, giving rise to tranquility, giving rise to samadhi, and then giving rise to upekkha, this looking on, which is the experience of looking on, presumably, the states of mind that have been developed. So this is where we can make breakthrough to Dhamma, this 7 factors of awakening. So that gives you the background, and also to mention Nakula Pitta and Nakula Mata. They appear in a number of different different teachings that they got from the Buddha. But so maybe I wonder if we just do, say, 5-minute Sanghanussati, and we can use Nakula Mata, or you can use any of the Arya Sangha. Because the important thing with the Arya Sangha, as Aikema used to say, they can't really let you down. They're the real deal. Everyone else, they're doing their best, but they're probably not to that degree. Because once somebody becomes an Arya Pugala, becomes a noble one, they often say they've changed lineage. They've changed from being a person that's one of the world, one that's going to just be caught up in rebirth. They have become a trainee. They're actually on the path to liberation very directly. So this is a really important stage when one becomes a stream enterer or above. So it's something that we can really as we say, practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, we can look forward to it. And really the stages of enlightenment, what they are showing, what is happening is the person, this sense of I, me and myself is being eroded more and more. It's being replaced by Dhamma. So it's dream entry, there is still defilements, but they've seen, there isn't a permanent I, me and myself in this. It's a process. And that relieves us so much, because so often we take everything personally and we think people out there are doing and saying what they're doing and saying deliberately. But when we see the conditioned nature of it all, that it's just a process, then we see they couldn't act any other way. They couldn't have spoken any other way, thank you very much, even though I may have wished it. So when one's seen the Dhamma, one's become more of it, the Dhamma. So a stream enterer, so many of the defilements will be reduced. They're being filled with Dhamma, and then the once returner, more Dhamma. A non-returner, almost the full amount of becoming Dhamma, as it were. And the enlightened one, the fully awakened one, is of course somebody that is just Dhamma, the full of Dhamma. And of course Ajahn Chah has a lovely book, and it's called, I think it was Paul, one of the translators, Paul Brighter, he called it Becoming Dhamma. That's what we're doing, we're becoming Dhamma. That's why we say the Buddha, if we see the Dhamma, we see the Buddha, because just Dhamma. That's what's, none of this, personal stuff, this ego stuff, all that's gone. I, me and myself, gone. Just Dhamma, all these good qualities. And we're doing that. We're on that path to do that, so that's great. So now maybe just a very short Sangha Nusati on using Nakula's mother. So we can just see if we are comfortable. We can arrange ourselves on the seat, because we've been sitting for a while already, so it won't be long. And we can just close the eyes if we wish, or half close them if we're feeling a bit drowsy. And we can come into the present moment. And here we've got nothing we have to do, nor anywhere we have to go. Just here now. And we can bring to mind parts of the body, and as we breathe in, we can tighten those. And as we breathe out, we can relax those areas. This is a very good way to establish mindfulness of those areas. And so we can bring to mind the toes, feet, and legs, right up to the bottoms. And we can, as we breathe in, tighten from the toes up to the buttocks. And as we breathe out, release that tension from the bottom down to the toes. And we can just notice how that feels, what we're aware of, maybe in different areas. And now we can bring to mind the abdomen, stomach and chest. And as we breathe in, we can tighten from the abdomen up to the chest. And as we breathe out, we can release the tension from the chest, stomach and down to the abdomen. And just to take a few moments to notice how that feels, what sensations we are aware of. And now we can bring to mind the fingers, hands, arms and shoulders. And as we breathe in, we can tighten from the fingers right up to the shoulders. And As we breathe out, we can release the tension from the shoulders, arms, hands and fingers. And just to pay attention for a short time to how that feels, what we're aware of. And now we can bring to mind the neck, the face and the rest of the head, and we can tighten from the neck up to the top of the head as we breathe in. And as we breathe out, we can release from the top of the head down to the neck. And we can just become aware of how that feels. And now, for a few moments, we can become aware of the whole body sitting here, however it is. Just aware of whatever you're aware of moment by moment, the pressures in the body, air temperature, sound, whatever it is, there's plenty going on. And now we can bring to mind Nakula Mata or Nakula's mother, and we can remember her ovada, her advice to her husband. We can remember that she was a stream enterer, and how kind she was to her husband, calming his concerns about her material well-being and also her spiritual well-being. And we can just reflect on her story for a few moments. And if we notice a feeling come up for us, maybe a warmth in the chest, we can focus on that. Just giving attention to it, not using any force, just to allow that feeling to expand by itself and fill us, our bodies and minds. And then we can become aware of the breath coming in and going out. And as we breathe in, we can breathe in with whatever feeling has come up. Maybe a feeling of a warmth, maybe it's a feeling of joy, happiness, inspiration, breathing it in and breathing it out, breathing it in and breathing out with this feeling that has arisen, reflecting on Nakula's mother. And when we breathe it in and breathe it out, it makes the breath much more attractive, easier to stay with. It also builds sometimes on that feeling. It grows as we breathe in and we breathe out. And it may be for some that as we're breathing in and breathing out, we can experience a brightness of the mind, a gladness of the mind. And for some, with more time, as we're breathing in and breathing out, we can experience this rapture or joy, this piety, maybe tingling all over the body or waves of energy through the body. There can be many different types. And then for some, if that really takes off, then there can become this great peacefulness of the body and the mind, this tranquility, nothing moving. And so parts of the body can be disappearing, the hands or the whole body disappearing. And then this great happiness arising, sukha, as we breathe in and we breathe out. And then the mind coming together, singleness, maybe a bright light, a very special sign, a feeling of some sort, perception of some unusual perception, and the mind becoming one, becoming absolutely still, but very joyful and happy with piti sukha. And now we're coming close to the end of the meditation, so we can, as it were, share whatever we experience, maybe a little bit more stillness, a little bit more peace, a bit more mindfulness. Maybe the thinking died down, so a little bit more silence. This warmth, maybe this sense of warmth or joy, and we can share it with everybody here for their well-being and happiness, wishing them well. And we can expand this sharing beyond these walls to all beings around the center, whether they be visible beings like us and animals and insects, or invisible beings. And we can keep expanding that, sharing this gift of whatever we experienced with all beings. And we can expand that in ever-widening circles until we cover the whole of the earth. And we can finish by having this aspiration to use these Sanghanussati for inspiration in our daily life, inspiration in our meditation, to give us give this lift of happiness, of joy, a sense of purpose that it can be done. And for this to be a gift to others that we meet in our daily lives, our family, friends, all those we encounter at work, at school, wherever it be. And we can anchor this feeling of Sanghanussati in our hearts. We can say thank you to Nakala Mata, Nakala's mother, for being so inspiring, for helping us on the path, for being a Kalyana Mitra, even though we never met her. We meet her in the suttas. And now we can slowly come out of meditation, or ring the bell, actually, that's good. and come out of meditation on the third ring. There we are. So we can open the eyes and move the body. And so I think I was going to give you some more of the teachings to Nakla Pitta and Nakla Mata, but I won't today. I've given one recently, and from the one the Buddha gave to Nakla Pitta, and it was called Reframing Illness or Sickness. And that was when the Buddha taught Nakla Pitta, when he was really old and getting very sick very often. Even though the body may be sick, may the mind not be sick. But that's a whole other teaching. And there's another teaching of when Nakla Mata and Nakla Pitta, they invited the Buddha to their home for a dana. And they asked the Buddha, how can we be reborn together? I hope they both wanted to. And he tells them that they have the same qualities. They can be reborn together, the same faith or confidence, conviction, the same sort of virtue, the same sort of generosity and the same sort of wisdom or understanding. Then they're on the same page and they've got a very good chance of being born together. Why a stream enterer would like to do that, I'm not quite sure, but I think Nakla Mata, Nakla's mother, may have been very kind to Nakla Pitta, who may not have been a stream enterer and would take another life. Because as you know, in the Ratana Sutta, a stream enterer will not take an 8th life, so that means that you've got a maximum of another 6 lives as in a human form. Of course, they can go to a Deva realm and so forth. So human or Deva realm. So there we are. And so they're teaching other teachings to this ideal Buddhist couple. I didn't say the Buddha said they were the foremost in their faith faith in their unfaltering love for each other. You know, that incredible bond. That was sort of amazing. So the Buddha said that they were foremost in this quality. So that's just, that'll be maybe for a future teaching, Nakla Pitta and Nakla Mata. All right. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you use it for your meditation and for your life. Yeah, great. Sadhu.
We probably have time for 1 or 2 questions. Is there any from the hall today?
I always have questions.
Hello, Susie.
Hi.
Yeah.
Talking about, as a layperson, we're surrounded by a lot of possessions which a monk, a bhikkhu, bhikkhuni are not. But I don't know where I heard this story that a monk or a nun can be attached to their begging bowl, you know, but a layperson can be not attached to a whole lot of possessions, and it's a lot to do with our relationship with the possessions and where we find our happiness. And I find in myself that the more I go deeper in my meditations and find that happiness inside, it's a natural process that the outside stuff loses its attachment. It's not about, I shouldn't be attached to these things. It's a natural approach. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because that's a significant difference between a lay person and somebody who's renounced possessions.
Yeah, that's the key word, isn't it? Renounced, really. Yeah, because really it's anyone who has renounced or renunciation. It's called nekama sankappa, you know, the intention, sometimes called thought, sometimes called attitude of renunciation. And really what that means is we are renouncing looking for our happiness from outside. And as you say, it's a very natural thing when we start to develop the meditation, when we start to develop the happiness within, the things outside are not so, we're not so attached to them, when they're not so dear to us, because we realise, everybody knows it, happiness comes from inside, but we do a lot of work to, you know, get the ideal home, the ideal clothes, the ideal partner, the ideal job, the ideal car, the EV, whatever it is. We do a lot in that way, but one that's finding that happiness within, realise these things are not such a big deal, and it loosens those attachments. And this is, as you said, it's a very natural progression. Sometimes I do hear people, you know, and particularly as they're getting close to the end of their life, they're sort of forcefully detaching, and when I hear that, I'm a bit sort of apprehensive that they may be, you know, the family wouldn't understand it to a certain extent. It could seem like coldness to the family, like they're pushing them away. And that's not the idea of renunciation. Renunciation is quite natural. And a person that renounces a lot of the looking for happiness from the five senses, the outside world, they're there, they're more available for people actually, because a lot of the attention's not going into finding happiness from out there. And so the attention going on focusing on the happiness within. And a lot of that can come from being kind to people, being there for people, being caring, having compassion for people, and having joy for their good qualities, and also accepting them as they are. That's sort of often called radical acceptance that understands that we are as we are at this moment. There's no wishing otherwise that can change it. We are, they are, just this way at this moment. Possibility for change always, but so this is a very important shift, as you say, that moving, looking for happiness within, very natural in the meditation, and it is the source of all the happiness we experience. I often say to people, it's not the things out there giving us happiness. We're giving them happiness. We're giving them importance, actually, because not everybody thinks this curry is great, or this painting is fantastic, or this music is wonderful, you know. No, we don't all. It's not the objects that are doing that. It's from our minds, our hearts, and of course, you know, we are giving happiness to those things. So therefore we start to loosen that bond, as it were. We're not using them as triggers to bring up that happiness so much. We're going straight to the the settings internally. So it's much, much more direct. So this is a very good point, Susie. I think that's wonderful. Great. There we are. Any other online questions or anything? Yep.
No online question yet.
No, that's amazing. Usually online people, I often wonder what you're doing out there. Are you having cups of tea, having brekkie, or whatever it is? Yes.
Hi, Ajahn.
Susan. Yeah.
I just wanted, I don't even know if I can find the right words exactly, but I'll try. I've been I'm been thinking a lot recently. No, not a lot, but it's been on my mind. The relationship of being an island unto oneself and stream entry. And I don't know what the relationship is exactly, but those two things have been on my mind quite a bit. And I wonder whether you can help me a little bit to understand more about if there is a relationship between those two positions, if you like, and how and how and how we come. I don't know about anybody else in the room, but I came from a very Anglo-Saxon background. And the Anglo-Saxon background is, no matter what, you're very modest. You're extremely self-effacing. You're taught to be very self-effacing, not to have expectations.
Yes.
Expectations can be very a trap. So I
Certainly.
also don't have expectations in a natural, and it fits with the Buddhist teachings, I believe.
Yeah, that's quite true.
That all fits.
Yeah.
But how to know how to have a reality about what one's situation is.
Yeah, well,
Is that a better way to say it?
yeah, that's good. I think being an island unto ourselves, with no other island, with the Dhamma as our island, is some of the advice the Buddha gave, particularly towards the end of his life, and you see it in the Parinibbana Sutta. And he mentions how we can be an island unto ourselves. And how is that? Anyone remember? It's very practical, as always with the Buddha. It is a practice, aspect of the practice. And it's by practicing mindfulness, satipatthana, that one can be an island unto oneself, with the Dhamma as one's island, like one's refuge. And this is the important thing. It's a very attractive idea of being an island unto oneself, that sort of focusing within, Interestingly, a deepa, which is island, can also be translated as light or lamp. So some people got that translation, but island fits very well, I feel, for myself. And of course, why that is the case is because when we practice the 4 focuses of mindfulness, we're really with the focus on the body, and the breath is part of those contemplations for the mindfulness of the body, or mindfulness of the body, recollection of the body, is the breath, of course, is a very good one. And it anchors us here in the present moment, and it can be used for developing the meditation very, very well. And of course, you see that that when we use that anchor, it can take us all the way to enlightenment. And so, for instance, even though the breath is a physical thing, in the second stage of the breath meditation, it becomes mental. So we have this piti sukha, this rapture and happiness coming up. And then it can go into the third stage, which is when the mind really goes within itself, converges. And then samadhi happens. One goes into these deep meditations. And then as we come out of those deep meditations, then we can see things as they truly are. The breath is still around, and we can see things. And what do we see? We see impermanence. We see the fading away of desire and craving. We see the mind coming to nirodha, to cessation, to the cessation of craving and all these desires. And we can see patinissagga, this giving up, natural giving up of the sense of I, me, and myself. So this is just using the body as the contemplation, the mindfulness of the body. But then there's mindfulness of feeling, vedana, pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, coming from the senses and coming from the mind, coming spiritual qualities. Then the third one, very, very important for our practice, is mindfulness of the mind itself. If we don't know what's going on in our mind, if we don't know this, I've got anger and I'm angry, and we don't know we've got this joy and we are joyful, it's very difficult to practice, because a big part of the practice, of course, is being able to reduce and eventually eliminate the negative qualities of the mind, the nivaranas, those things that are blocking us from deep meditation and wisdom. And the fourth aspect is very important, that we remember Dhamma, mindfulness of Dhamma. We remember these teachings that can be so helpful for recognizing our experiences and guiding us towards an appropriate way of reacting to experience, really understanding the Dhamma, keeping the Dhamma in mind. So this is why it's an island for us, Susan. Is for those very reasons. It grounds us. It can give us a real insight into the fact that we are driven by feeling very much. We want pleasant feeling. We want to get away from unpleasant feeling, physical and mental. And neutral feeling, who cares? Usually that's what people say. But a practitioner actually starts to see neutral feeling as being actually a place of rest, of peace, because one's not being tugged by the desire for something pleasant, a pleasant experience, and not being repelled by the unpleasant. So this is really, seeing Vedana deeply actually really can lead to our breakthrough. It did for Venerable Sariputta. That's what he was contemplating when he became enlightened. And of course, the mindfulness of the Dhammacittanupasana is so important. As I say, if we don't know our intentions, for instance, if we don't know we've got intentions, our intentions are focused on sense experience, we don't recognise there's a lot of ill will and irritation, annoyance, and that we actually are being hurtful or harmful to ourselves and others, then we can't practice the Noble Eightfold Path. We're not practicing the right way, because the right way is, of course, bringing up the sense of renunciation, looking for happiness within, having kindness and caring, and also having this mind that wants to help, that's compassionate, doesn't want to hurt ourselves or others. So this is the path. And if you look at the suttas too, Susan, you'll see that it's not only in terms of mindfulness. There's a wonderful teaching where the Buddha is talking about being an island unto ourselves and contemplating the second noble truth. And that is brilliant, keeping in mind that craving, wanting is the source of dukkha, of the unsatisfactoriness in our lives. And it's a very deep teaching, but it's interesting. You use that as being an island unto ourselves, because if we can make the breakthrough to the understanding the Four Noble Truths, we'll be the stream enterer. We're home and host. We've seen the path. We've seen, stream entry will see the Four Noble Truths, and with that, first noble truth of dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness, the cause for this, which is wanting, that will lead to rebirth, and the fact that it can end. And also the fourth one, the path. That is the real gem that we've been given, that we can practice to find out for ourselves. It's ehipassiko, come and see for yourself, investigate. So there we are. That's being an island unto yourself. It's very important. That's a great one, yeah. So sadhu for that, thank you. All right, I think it's time, isn't it? Yeah.
Go with announcements now. Thanks very much, Ajahn
Thanks,
Nissarano, for your talk today and your questions. Just in terms of announcements, many in the community may have been aware that Venerable Kondanyo has been in Colombia visiting family when the earthquake struck. Just to let everyone know that we've heard from him, and Venerable Kondanyo and family are all safe. He shares his thanks for everyone's concerns and hope we may continue to keep our thoughts and prayers with the people of Colombia. Good to hear from Venerable, but obviously still a lot of devastation.
Yeah. Yep.
Caretaker, we are still looking for a caretaker at Newbury SOS. We're seeking a lay volunteer who can commit 3 months or more, but having said that, if you're available for shorter periods as well, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out, and there's more information in the newsletter as well. Online sutta discussions facilitated by Bhante Sangamaji and Ayasanta. The next one will be next Saturday, 22nd of August. Sessions commence at 7 p.m. Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney time on the Discord channel, bsv.net.au/Discord. You can find links to that.
And just to give a strong recommendation for that, the Sangha is now attending quite a few of them now, and they're brilliant. They're really good. I'm just surprised so few people. You can join it on Zoom or on Discord. He gave he gave a lovely teaching on the foremost disciples of the Buddha, and that was the monks, the nuns, the laymen, the lay women. So it was brilliant. And Nakalapita and Nakalamata were in there. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, I'd like them to be, because they're a good resource and really interesting discussions too. Good.
In terms of retreats, as it's during Vasa at the moment, we've got self-retreats at SOS, a minimum of 1 week stay. If you're interested, please go to bsv.net.au/retreat-centre. Tomorrow night we have Ajahn Nissarano leading the meditation, which is fantastic. And then next week we have on Sunday Venerable Chi Kuang Sunim, and Monday night will be Ajahn Nissarano. And final announcement, Ajahn Nissarano will be this afternoon between 3 to 6 p.m. Be speaking with some women in the dining area and is seeking a male chaperone.
That's it. Good.
So that, yeah.
If anyone's got the time, it's roughly 3 hours. It could be less, but I think, about 3 hours. Then, it's great joy. I've forgotten that I've got the committee meeting at 7 o'clock, so it's a lot. But anyway, but still, that's it. That's good. So if anybody can, they can always speak to me. Any of the men can speak to me. It's a bit of a time, but this afternoon, that would be helpful. That's good. Yeah, great.
That's the end of the announcements. So I might pass to Ajahn Nissarano to lead closing.
Yeah, we can just finish by, maybe we don't do the arahang so much. It's in the Thai tradition, but I always like it actually. And it's very easy to pick up. Those who'd like to, you can just do it from your seat. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami